You're listening to The Luxury Item, the podcast on the business of luxury and the people and companies that are shaping the future of the luxury industry. Here's your host, Scott Kerr.
The world's most discerning travelers, the kind who have already stayed in the finest properties on every continent, are increasingly moving beyond the resort model altogether. They are booking private expeditions instead. Expedition cruising is one of the fastest growing and most premium tiers of cruising, shifting from niche to core aspiration for affluent travelers seeking meaning and status through rare experiences. My guest on The Luxury Item is Francesco Galli Zugaro, CEO of Aqua Expeditions, a boutique luxury small ship and superyacht operator that he founded in 2007 with the vision of delivering intimate small ship expeditions to some of the world's most remote destinations, pairing superyacht-level luxury with serious exploration to remote biodiverse regions. Core itineraries range from the Peruvian Amazon, the Mekong River in Cambodia and Vietnam, to the Galapagos Islands, Seychelles, Tanzania, the Norwegian Arctic, and the Scottish Isles. In early 2025, leading French luxury expedition cruise Ponant Explorations Group took a majority stake in Aqua Expeditions, providing capital and infrastructure to accelerate expansion while retaining Aqua's boutique positioning. Welcome to The Luxury Item, Francesco.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Maybe I should say welcome back from the Arctic Circle. How was your trip?
Oh, it was amazing. I just spent a month on board for hosting the inaugural departures of our newest icebreaker, Aquanatis. And whilst I'm in balmy, hot Europe now in Italy,
Yeah.
it was amazing to be up in the Arctic Circle, up in Svalbard, heading towards the North Pole. And we took a 3-week expedition, broken up into 3 trips: a 9-night, a 5-night, and a 7-night, but basically covering 2,500 nautical miles from Glasgow to the Hebridean Islands, all the way along the coastline of Norway, and then shooting across the Barents Sea, Bear Island, and getting to Longyearbyen, and going to New-Alesund, which is the northernmost populated town in the world.
Expedition cruising is one of the most dynamic and exciting segments of the cruise industry, growing faster than mainstream cruising as travelers seek more remote, immersive experiences. Why do you think there's been a surge in wealthy travelers gravitating to expedition cruising, and why does it resonate with them?
You know, if I look back 20 years ago, 25 years ago or more, when I kind of delved and cut my teeth into expedition cruising, I think we have to understand and appreciate the fact that kind of what I call an affluent explorer has always been there, but they were just venturing to places like sub-Saharan Africa. So once these luxury safaris came on the map, and a lot of our guests had done those, they were always looking for new sort of soft adventures beyond sub-Saharan Africa. And I think we have to give thanks to our African partners that kind of elevated this authentic, kind of nature-focused, super high-end experiences. And then I brought that to the Amazon. So it was there, it just wasn't catered to outside of sub-Saharan Africa. And then when I did it in South America and then ventured beyond, I saw that there was an opportunity to cater to these kind of, demanding guests, but rightly so, because they want to have a sense of adventure without sacrificing those creature comforts, and cut my teeth into the Peruvian Amazon. And I think we all have this sense of adventure innate in us, and we have this kind of desire to explore. But how do you present this in a way that's comforting, that it's kind of a 9-to-5 adventure, and you package all that up in an authentic way, and kind of describes what we've done in the last 20 years with Aqua Expeditions, because next year is my 20th anniversary. Beauty of what happens on board our small ships, and whilst yes, it's a popular terminology these days, and a lot of people want to do this experiential travel, everybody defines it in whatever capacity, whatever suits them. From the supplier side, they define it in whatever suits their mission. On the guest side, it's whatever appeals to them. But I think what we have an opportunity to do here is we're catering to a demographic of guests that's obviously got the purchasing power to come on these trips. So everybody on board our ships is paying pretty much the same. Okay, there's an owner's suite here and an owner's suite there on some of the ships. But at the end, the core is you already have a successful, disposable income demographic of guests that's been everywhere. These are not your first long haul travelers that are taking their first big trip. These are people, the guests that have been everywhere, all over the world. They've done gorilla camps in Rwanda, or they've done Antarctica, or they want to do tiger camps in India. And so these destinations, they've heard of them, they've aspired to go to them. But once on board, they kind of check their ego at the door, or at least on the embarkation step, because they know that they're on board with a very well traveled audience, with a super curious and super engaging client base. Because at the end of the day, they've knowingly booked themselves on a small, anywhere between 8 to 20 cabin ship. And so that kind of creates a setting of, it's no longer about the bragging rights, but it's more about sharing these stories of where they're going, or where they've come from, or where they want to go. And I think that creates this incredible, genuine sense of kind of familiar style of travel that's authentic. And that's where we can work our magic, because then we provide that platform to our guests, which are these super cool, renovated super yachts that, now we sell by the cabin, or these custom river ships where everybody embarks feeling like they're getting on board a private yacht. And I think it creates this wow factor for our guests and for our crew to deliver something unique.
We're coming up on your 20th anniversary. You launched Aqua Expeditions back in 2007 as a pioneer in luxury small ship river cruising on the Peruvian Amazon with a single custom-built vessel, well before true luxury expedition cruising was an established category. What did you see in the yachting market and in the ultra-affluent traveler that you felt there was a genuine business opportunity?
I felt I wanted to, I didn't have a perfect clarity of a vision of 20 years when I started this business. Obviously, I saw an opportunity, having cut my teeth in small ship expedition cruising on the Galapagos and running, a business for a group that I worked with. And then having exited that and then starting Aqua 20 years ago, I had a vision to kind of replicate a mixture of African safari style experience, houseboats in Kerala in India, and then lodges in South America. And all came together when I went to Iquitos and saw this beautiful kind of Jurassic Park meets Garden of Eden, floating kind of safari style experience. So I had this vision of bringing high end experiential travel to South America on the Amazon River to replicate an African safari experience. And I knew that I wanted to uh, deliver a few more rivers, and then eventually go into ocean expeditions on coastal waterways. I didn't have a perfect clarity of what exact destinations, because I kept it flexible in order to go with interest and geopolitical considerations in different parts of the world. But now looking back, I had a very clear vision. I think that to a certain degree has been luckily my blessing. My strength is that I've got blinders on. In a good way. I don't distract myself. I focus on executing. We operate in very remote, geographically and legally complex destinations, because I've chosen the furthest reaches of the world, from Raja Ampat to the Amazon to the Mekong to now East Africa and the Arctic. So, and they're small operations, they're 15 to 20 cabins, and that's 40 guests max. So logistically complicated. But I just felt like staying small was going to be my forte. And now when I see these bigger operators come into play, from 50, 100, 200
Yeah.
cabins, that's fine, and like, welcome. I was blessed to have no competition for about 20 years, but my competition isn't the ship next door. It's the purchasing power of our guests, and wanting and seeing where they want to travel. Do they want to go on a safari in East Africa? Do they want to go to tiger camp in India, or do they want to go to the Galapagos? So it's no longer about the competition next door. It's about the ability to bring a destination to market in a safe, authentic way, and making sure that we build a brand. And over the last 20 years, I've been so focused on building my brand, because it's not just about the assets, it's also about the pillars that my brand was built on. And that, I'm happy to say, that is solid today. Independent and new players coming to market. Some of them are selling themselves as palaces on the water, which are beautiful. And some are
Yeah.
spectacular, small ships. But what's really, really different is that we delve to go and have the strong spirit of exploration, and that is very, very unique to Aqua.
You deliberately built Aqua around depth over distance. So, for a guest who's used to maximizing countries and ports, how is staying put the more luxurious choice?
But at the end of the day, what we do is because we become these destination specialists, we dig two, three layers below the surface, and it allows me to become the expert in East Africa. So if I'm going to build an itinerary that covers East Africa, Seychelles, Aldabra, and Zanzibar, and I'm going to run programs 5, 9, 10, 11 nights on an ongoing basis for 20 weeks a year, it really allows me to build relationship with the local communities, identify the best snorkeling and dive spots, and be able to scout the region and really understand the migration of the whale sharks, understand where the feeding stations are for the manta rays, for the giant oceanic mantas, to understand where the best corals are. Because if you're just a fly-by-night kind of ship that's passing through with 15 stops on a 12-night itinerary, you can't do that on a regular basis and build long-standing relationships. And at the end of the day, we as an operator have to understand that I am a visitor in someone's backyard. It's a national park in East Africa, if it's the Galapagos, if it's the Mekong, if it's the Tonle Sap River on Tonle Sap in Cambodia, I'm still seeing, whilst we're locally flagged and locally crewed, we're going to people's backyards. So we have a duty of care to maintain the relationship with the locals, even though we're paying our dues to enter the reserve and enter the marine park. And it's so much about being the destination specialist. And you can't do that with 2, 3 itineraries a year that just come passing through.
You're essentially selling what can be called engineered risk. You take people who likely fly private remote, they're used to total control, and you take them to remote rivers, coral seas, high latitudes. Has the actual appetite for edge and risk tolerance by your ultra affluent guests changed since you launched?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've definitely got, but the audience has changed to a certain degree. It's gotten younger. So obviously, the minute we introduced our Explorer yachts, I think there was a genuine and a genuine appreciation that thought originally our first comers were always guests that were never cruising clients. They were never thought of themselves as big cruisers. But when they saw our intimate river ships, they're like, okay, actually, that looks pretty cool. That looks like a floating base camp, and I'm gonna go explore the Amazon and that in Peru. Then we launched our ocean ships, which is Aqua Blue in Indonesia, Aqua Mare in Galapagos, and now Aqualares in East Africa and Arctic. And that attracted a slightly younger audience. Today, our average guest is about 53 to 54 years old, down from 58 a few years ago, pre-COVID. Obviously, we have upwards from that and then down from that as well. But on average, we're attracting that. And yes, the guest is wanting to be more active. The ocean ships have offered that, even though our Mekong ship has a full biking itinerary, which is, biking every single day on all our trips. But what happened actually recently we had 2 guests on 2 different trips that actually own private yachts. And they said, Francesco, you've hit the nail on the head, because what you offer us is the opportunity not only to not bring our ships up here in the Arctic or in East Africa with the headaches that imply bringing a ship down here, but you've also are able to deliver a private yacht experience for yacht owners without the headache of managing, bringing friends and family, relocating the ship, and allowing consistent delivery of F&B on board, a design. So I think that was such a pleasant kind of affirmation from our guests. We had a British couple and we had an Australian couple that both own their yachts. They keep them in their homes wherever they are. But they're like, I should sell my yacht and just do this, because you're able to deliver what I want to do all the time with my ship without having to be the host on board and have the services and the comfort that a private yacht brings. And that's why that niche is so appealing to us, because we've been able to bridge this gap of offering that private yacht experience, but just by the cabin. And a lot of them may fly even privately to our destinations and then book 2 cabins for them and their children and take 2 cabins, but they know on board they are with like-minded guests. And that's the big, it's about the environment we can create on board, as long as we deliver on these wow factors, which means pushing a little bit outside their comfort zone. And that's when they have these aha moments, let's call it, where the guest says, I've been wanting to paddle board in the Arctic. And last week we delivered to a German couple. They said, we've been wanting to paddle in the Arctic, and we arranged a paddle board for a guide and two of them to go out at 7 o'clock in the morning, because obviously we have 24-hour daylight in the Arctic this summer,
Hmm.
or all summers. And they were able to go out and amongst icebergs do stand-up paddleboard, which we offer kayaking, but we did paddle boards for them, and that they said that was their dream come true. And so that's what we can do to anybody who asks.
And you talked a little bit about the demographics of your guests. And what about their mindset? What are they running toward? Perhaps they're escaping from something. What's going on in their heads? What's their mindset when they take a cruise?
Everybody has this imaginary list in their back of their head of trips they want to do in their lifetime, right? And so we all have them, and luckily, because everybody's innovating in the space, there's always more to add to the list. Thank God. Imagine if our list just getting shorter and shorter as we check them off the list. So I think we all have these lists and we all have these experiences. For this couple, it was paddle boarding the Arctic. For another couple, it's to fish piranhas. For another couple, it's to swim with whale sharks. For another couple, it's to see the floating markets in Cambodia and go to see temples on a bike ride. So we all have these expectations, these preconceived notions of what the ultimate adventure is. And I'm pretty close to the ground of understanding what those are, but also what COVID obviously has shown us is that all of a sudden that list, all these destinations came, went up a few notches. People didn't want to all of a sudden hold back and say, you know what, I'm going to wait until my kids are married and go with their wives or with my grandchildren to do a Galapagos trip, but I'm actually going to charter a ship and go with my kids that are 12, 14, and 16 and go and do that ultimate family adventure now when they're young. So everybody wants to check these places off the list, but in a genuine, not so fast paced trip. So our minimum, on ocean ships is 5. Our maximum is 19 nights on our ships, because people, and obviously, thank God of Starlink on our ships, they're able to stay longer. Starlink now has allowed our guests to book longer trips, to stay on board for longer adventures. And that's amazing. But they're also moving these destinations much further on, and they're much sooner in their lives, because they don't want to hold back in case health or financial conditions change and they're not able to do these trips when they could have been younger and more active, because now they want to hike to that waterfall in the Asmat and go see these remote tribes in West Papua that we run 2 programs a year, and that requires you to be somewhat a bit more fit, and they want to do that. They need to do that when they're able to. So I think there's genuinely interest to go beyond, and not for the bragging rights, for the true sense of spirit of, wow, I'm amongst the lucky few that get to do this. Amongst the 70,000 that get to go to to Arctic a year, or the 250,000 that get to go to the Galapagos a year, or even less the ones that go to Raja Ampat and to see the birds of paradise and oceanic manas and probably the best coral marine life in the world. So I think it's this desire to see and explore this beautiful world we live in, but in a controlled, safe, small, intimate environment.
You've spent almost 2 decades building Aqua, and this very tight, founder-driven small ship specialist. And then in 2025, you sell a majority stake to Ponant. Why did that deal make sense to you versus just staying fully independent?
It's a good question, and one that I always knew I was going to question prior to the transaction. Post transaction, I have to say I'm very pleased. You go into these opportunities with your eyes wide open, hoping that you've done all the DD, all the fact checking and soul searching that you need to do before making them, and handing over that kind of that signature. But looking back now, I'm very pleased and I'm very happy with the relationship. But let me take you a step back to the thought process that led to that decision. And it
Mhm.
was a decision I took genuinely and proactively, and I went out and sought that opportunity. One is, these are highly capital intensive businesses. Every time I bring a ship to market, I need to go out, take myself somewhat out of the equation, go to market market, raise 15, 20, 30, $40 million for a ship, either a new build or purchase and retrofit it. And to a certain degree, I enjoy that process because I do like the process of pitching, and I like that uncertainty of reaching investors. And I entered and exited successfully multiple private equity, financial institutions funding, and incredible track record. I'm super pleased. However, it got to a point where post COVID, I had to make a decision. I either kept that private equity investment component in my business mix. And every 2, 3 years, I go back and I trade up from a mid-sized cap firm to a larger, capital kind of investment structure, or I exit them and then I find that one-off strategic partner that understands the business, the vision, aligns with my vision, understands an entrepreneurial spirit that led us to get to where we are today, and then allows me to have a flow of potential capital injection in order to continue to deliver this. And that is the mindset I had. And so I either needed to continue to go to market, and I knew competition was going to start biting at my heels, and that's fine, it's healthy. But I needed to make sure that the capital wasn't going to be an issue, and I didn't have to unfocus myself for 2, 3 months a year, 2, 3 months every 2, 3 years to go out and raise more. So I ran a process, a competitive process. Went to market and settled on what today is obviously the Ponant Explorations Group, of which I'm very, very pleased. I've got incredible partners. Anybody who understands Aqua knows that there's been no change in the management, in the capacity to execute, and the service levels. We've sacrificed absolutely zero as a result of this business, and it only has allowed me to have that peace of mind that you have a big brother overlooking and watching and supporting you when needed, that understands entrepreneurial spirit, that allows us to get to, the challenges that come with entrepreneurship, that puts us in a portfolio of brands that is luxury in general, but not pigeonhole me into a purely cruise only business. We've got a group of luxury lifestyle brands, fashion brands, F&B brands that are world class. And I love the fact that Aqua falls neatly into that portfolio of brands, and super proud of it. And today, while it was an entrepreneurial vision 20 years ago, today it's a collective why of over 450 individuals that I employ today, and that is a common shared goal and vision, because today it's by no means a solo effort. Today I have an incredible group of talented individuals that help execute the power of Aqua to now 47,000 past guests. And we've got a great loyalty program we launched last year to both our trade partners and our guests. And that's starting to take effect, and we're starting to see all the benefits that brings to stay and keep them within the family of brands.
Expedition operators are increasingly deploying vessels across radically different climates and regions as demand grows for remote destinations that feel difficult to access and harder to replicate. Aqua Expeditions upped the game and transformed a 1980 Dutch-built icebreaker rescue tug into Aqualaris, a small luxury superyacht capable of operating between the Indian Ocean and the Arctic within the same year, basically creating a vessel designed to move seasonally between extremes. You could have ordered a brand new build, but instead you chose to acquire and transform an existing vessel with serious ice-class capability. How did this wild idea come about?
What we look for, and what I think my biggest advantage is, that more remote the destination, the more it appeals to me personally and to our guests. Second, the larger ships coming to market require an incredible amount of ground logistics, supply lines, harbor, port services, ship to shore services. So by default, I look for places that have none of that. I don't want the port. Our ships never go to port, never go to a marina, never go alongside. We drop anchor, we tend to our guests ship to shore on our Zodiacs, and that's the spirit of adventure I want. The less infrastructure for us, the better. Then you have this opportunity of this ship. This ship, my son, myself, my wife, we've got all the alerts on. We've got brokers sending us stuff left and right, either opportunities. And this ship, prior known as Legend, was a very successful privately owned yacht that in some cases was chartered under the pretense of take her to the pole, so the North Pole and the South Pole, in other words, Antarctic and Arctic, and was a true explorer with an onboard submarine program, done research missions to see, sunken warships off the coast of the Orkney Islands in Scotland, done other wreck dives. And I love this ship. And once it all of a sudden the opportunity came out that we could purchase it, I jumped. I flew to Bermuda over the weekend. I saw it. I loved it. I confirmed I wanted it. And we made a deal, and it was super, super pleased. And then what I did is I put her in the shipyard for about 3 months. My son lived on it for 3 months as my son and daughter now work in the business with us. Um, and my wife as well. My son oversees the refit and Arctic operations. My daughter oversees global reservations, and my wife oversees interior design and design director for the fleet. And so we come as kind of the advanced team. We look at it and how could I bring her true heritage back into the ship? And we did a spectacular job of bringing some of the elements that we found all the old plans of the ship and the engine room, still some of them written in Russian because they was operated by a Russian operator at the time, and we put them on the hallways. It was just, we brought all this elegance back to the ship that had been lost over the numerous refits. And today Aqualares is our biggest ship yet as far as gross volume. It's 30 guests, 32 crew. And yes, she's a perfect platform to explore these two extremes: the Arctic frozen world of Svalbard, and then the marine ecosystems of Aldabra. She's a beast as far as mechanics. She's what single screw, massive capacity. Obviously, she's a 1B class icebreaker. I was up literally last week breaking ice above 82 degrees, upwards of 81 degrees north, breaking ice up in the pack ice there, looking for polar bears and whales. So technically, she has been very well maintained. I have to say that the previous owner did an incredible job of keeping her in her essence, but also making sure these fully redundant capability to break ice and fully compliant with polar codes in that part of the world.
You've hinted there's a clear roadmap for the next decade: new ships, new destinations, new technology. So what does a mature Aqua Expeditions actually look like in your head 5 to 10 years from now?
I've got to always make sure that I'm disciplined and not to get distracted. Over the years, we've had so many opportunities come our way, and I got to stay true to the original while adapting and going along with the times and looking at all sorts of opportunities always. But I think it's not a matter of growing for the sake of growing. If you look back, we've got 6 ships, 18, next year it'll be our 20th anniversary. We've basically built a ship or launched a ship every 3 years. And that's what that's all we can do, really. We don't have the bandwidth. We're not, an AMA and a white Viking that can just pump out, 10 ships a year. They're a powerhouse in that respect. But at the end of the day, my core is launching something that doesn't feel push for the sake of just delivering. Our guests like that they're getting on ships that are different. As long as they know that the levels are there on all my pillars, they like embarking and saying, wow, this is a cool new ship I hadn't thought about, and this is a cool yacht, this is a cool river ship. If not, I would have gone to market, raised $500 million and said, let's build 20 river ships or 10 yachts and 10 river ships and make them all cookie cutter the same and just change some interior decor. So we look for these passion projects. We look for ships that make sense for the destination. We take a personal interest. If I can't personally get excited about the ship, about the destination, how can I expect to get my investors and partners, my trade partners, my own personal sales team, and my staff and guests to get excited to come and visit and experience it? So our growth will be maybe somewhat sped up. We can kind of hit this fast speed a little bit given the backing we now have, but without losing that spirit of true calling, which is the sense of genuine exploration that is still very strong inside of us. So, stay tuned with what's to come. We've got a few aces up our sleeves still, and I've got the energy and the desire to do so and the incredible talent with me. But there's incredible places, and the small ships can go pretty much anywhere, either fresh bodies of water or coastal cruising. There's so many cool places we can go to.
So, Francesco, my final question is the luxury item question, which I ask all my guests. So, if you were stranded on a deserted island and you could only have one single luxury item with you, what would that luxury item be? It can't be any form of air or water transportation, sadly, or anything that requires mobile service, so you can call somebody at Aqua, perhaps Aqualaris, or sort of make a U-turn and come and pick you up from this deserted island. It's just you on this lonely island, but you have one luxury item with you. What would that be?
Okay. So without being misinterpreted, I think that one luxury item is my wife, because she has been by my side for now 35 years next year. And that's my survival mode, is my wife by my side.
Francesco Galli Zugaro, CEO of Aqua Expeditions, thank you so much for joining me on The Luxury Item.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this episode of the Luxury Item Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this useful and entertaining, I would be really grateful if you can share it with a friend or colleague. I would love it if you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other listeners find us. The Luxury Item Podcast is a production of Silvertone Consulting. I'm your host, Scott Kerr. Until next time.